Prairie Municipal Authority. It is January 7th, 2019. Roll call, please.
Coldiron. Gilbreath. Franklin. Hicks. Ahern.
Here.
Seabolt. Here. Morrow.
Here.
Stroller.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Same temperature.
Thank you. On our item now, pardon me, I do declare a quorum, and Bill, would you lead us in a prayer?
You bet. Join me in prayer, please. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you and give you praise and glory for all things. We always want to exalt your name and give you the glory where it's due. Father, we just ask that you open our minds and give us opportunity to make the best decisions tonight possible for this wonderful town that we live in. We just ask that we come together as a team, that there's so many decisions to be made from time to time in this town, and it's just wonderful that you are always here in the midst of us to open our minds and give us the abilities to make the right decisions, and the decisions that will glorify you, your Son. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Bill. Item 1, consent agenda, just item A only, receive and approve the minutes of the regular PMA of December 17th, 2018.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, Dixie.
Gilbreath. Here. This is a consent
And yes.
agenda. Yes or no?
Say yes, Crystal.
Oh, yes. Yes. Sorry.
You're on the committee now.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Library board.
Yes. Morrow.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you for volunteering.
Yeah, before nights maybe.
Item 4, comments from those assembled. Any comments concerning the PMA this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 5, proclamation, commendation, reports, and inquiries by the governing body. Council, staff, thank you. Any new business need to be brought before the PMA this evening? Seeing none, item 7, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, Dixie.
Gilbreath.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Seabolt. Yes. Morrow.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes. Thank you. I now call to order the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Perry, Oklahoma. It is January 7th, 2019. Roll call, please.
Coldiron. Gilbreath.
Here.
Franklin. Hicks.
Here.
Ahern.
Here.
Seabolt. Here. Morrow.
Here.
Stroller.
Here.
Johnson.
Here. That's all. I do declare a quorum. Consent agenda, item number 1, items A through F. What's your considerations, council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Gilbreath.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Seabolt. Yes. Morrow.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes. Thank you, council. Any comments from those assembled concerning the agenda this evening? None? Item 5, proclamation, commendations, reports, and inquiries. I report I had a great Christmas and Happy New Year's. Thank you. Thank you for your letters and cards to my wife concerning the loss of her mother. Really appreciate it. Anyone else? We'll move on then to item 6, city manager's remarks. I'll turn it over to, let's move on, let's go to item 7, and you can see there's, he didn't include anything this evening, so the report will be that, from me, that 1, we will start our CCC Trails project at Camp Tandaco as soon as we receive documents from the contractor, and they're approved by our attorney, which is one of the items on the agenda tonight, but I just thought I'd say that out loud here one more time. And then we'll start our other sidewalk projects, our state federally funded highway project along Fur, as soon as we get paperwork and have meetings on that. So those 2 will ought to start soon. And, oh, heck. Oh, and feel sorry for Larry. It looks like he's got the stomach bug that went around, and he just got it this afternoon. and we just met with him, so, yahoo. He is off today, he's ill. Anyone else like to make something? Where's our financial report?
You typically have that at the second meeting of the month.
Oh. You're here, so I thought I'd give you a chance to speak.
Okay, well, I will speak then. The audit is under review right now. We're waiting on the hospital. I know that's one thing that you all are waiting on to see. CBEW has completed everything that they have. No issues, no problems. It's just that we need to see the hospital before we can get everything issued.
Thank you. Now we move on to item 7. Approve the OMRF application for retirement pension of Catherine Sue Wilson.
Move approval. Second.
Second. Thank you. Thank you, Catherine, for your service. Roll call, please.
Gilbreath.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Seabold. Yes. Morrow.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes. Item 8, advertise for bid the citywide sanitary sewer Phase 3 capital improvement project, and set January 26, 2019 as the date to receive those bids.
Mayor, item 8 and 9, we're setting
Did I say-
February 26. Would it be to our advantage to split those dates on the hopes that somebody would be a low bidder on the item 8, come back with a lower bid than on item 9 because they're low bidder?
I believe that it would be two different types of contractors.
Okay,
I mean, I imagine, I think, because 4 is machinery,
right.
and what Blaine was hoping to do is have it run all at the, at the same time for purposes of his participation. It does have to be that late because of some 45-day requirement, because we got the CDBG grant, so. We tried to do it as quick as we can, but
I do want to correct my reading, it is February 26,
Yeah, February
2019.
26.
We'll receive those bids. Do I have a motion?
Move approval on item 8.
Second.
Thank you. Got a second? Any discussion needed? Comments? Roll call, please.
Gilbreath.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Seabold. Yes. Morrow.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes, thank you. Item 9, advertise for bid for Phase 4, the WWTB Fluent Lift Station renovation project, and set February 26, 2019 as the date to receive bids.
Motion approved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, Dixie.
Gilbreath.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Seabold. Yes. Morrow.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes. Item 10, consider approval of payment of invoice in the amount of $2,623 to MKEC Engineering Services on 2018-2019 street improvements that were Park and Park Drive and 8th Street designs and 8th Street additional survey effort. Did you look at item 10 in the back and see the explanations? Any questions? Motion, please.
motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, Dixie.
Gilbreath.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Seabold. Yes. Morrow.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Mayor, can we go back to item 9 just momentarily?
Yes, what do you got?
On the background work, page 12.
Okay.
First paragraph needs a little retypesetting. It's got some repeated words in there that need to come out.
You see that, Dixie?
Together, see a
Oh,
paragraph
back in
back in the handout.
In the actual.
the handout itself. Talking about it. Say again, Earl.
Very first paragraph, second line. Located at 622 Cedar in Perry, Oklahoma, and Del Perry City Hall located at 622 Cedar.
Oh, yeah, I see it. It's in the advertisement.
Okay.
But it does need to be cleaned up.
Yeah.
I'll do that before I send it to Gloria. I'll fix it before I send it to you.
Okay.
Thank you, Earl.
It's none of the other one.
We have a vote.
Yes, we did.
So move to item 10.
We did voted on 10, we're ready for 11.
Okay. Consider approval of payment of an invoice in the amount of $3,964.75 to MKEC Engineering for engineering services on survey, future work estimates, and exhibits for the lodge survey and preliminary design of the 3180 road estimate for Delaware Alley drainage. What we're talking about there is the lodge, north side of the lodge residential location. We had to survey the sidewalk to check the drainage there, and they came out and did that for us for the improvements that had gone underneath the lodge, make sure the water was draining away from the building, not draining under the building, as it had in the past. And then we're looking at the alley between Delaware and Elm that runs between 6th and 7th, behind the businesses there, behind the comeback, behind the lodge, the Oddfellows Lodge, because it dumps a lot of water in there. And so we had a survey done of that and some preliminary estimates, engineering look at what could be done in there to help that drainage. Questions?
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Roll call.
Gilbert.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Hayford.
Yes.
Seabolt.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes. Item 12, consider approval of payment of an invoice in the amount of $826.50 to MKEC Engineering for construction support of the 2018-2019 street improvements project closeout and pay applications. Questions?
Motion approved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, Dixie.
Gilbert.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Seabolt. Yes. Morrell.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes. Item 13, consider authorizing city manager to approve and execute a consulting services agreement. The agreement with William L. Sheets for a citywide sanitary sewer capital improvements project.
This is like the other one we did, the last phase, but it's estimated at 150 hours, $50 an hour. It's got all the standard independent contractor clauses in it, and it sets out the scope of this particular project.
Are we going to use a different inspector for phase 4?
Well, you know, with respect to phase 4 and AMI, it's not on the agenda, so I don't know how long we talk about it, but probably not long. But, you know, I want to ask Blaine about that. I mean, because phase 4 is putting in
It's a different-
equipment.
yeah, I
It's a
agree.
different
I just-
scope. And AMI, they were talking about having them for AMI. And, you know, we had the street problem, the streetscape down, but that was pavement, new lines coming out of buildings, replacement of whole meters and meter boxes. We're really talking about fixing some meter boxes and screwing in new water meters. I mean, I'm not sure. Of course, that'll be a subject on the next agenda. We can do one of these. I did contact UTS, and they said that they've never had an inspector. I mean, they get that provide a professional installer. They have performance bond, maintenance bond, and the like. So that may be a place where you may want to cut, but that's for another day, not today.
But there was a few sewer line issues with phase 4.
There
also.
there are a few. So there may be, what we may want to do is a similar agreement. Jennifer from NODA wanted this separate because
Okay,
of the
that's
CDBG.
fine. I just wanted to ask.
But yeah,
I mean,
phase
what
4,
we're
I'm
gonna talk
gonna ask Blaine how much is needed, and then we'll just amend this contract to look like that. And you will look at that and then consider whether you want an inspector for AMI at the next meeting.
Cool. Roll call, Dixie.
We don't have a motion to approve.
There we go.
Second.
There we go. Thank you. Roll call.
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Seabolt.
Yes.
Morrell.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes. Item 15. Items pertain to a 1% city sales
14,
tax.
14.
Trying to get us that football.
Caught you again.
Number 14.
Slow down, Mayor.
You want it out?
This is your project too. You skipped right over
Well,
it.
I'm just gonna do it.
You already brushed on it.
Consider approval of a contract with Nate's Tree Service, Stillwater, Oklahoma, for clearing, grubbing of Tandaco trails, and in the bid amount not to exceed $47,500, contingent upon the bonds and insurance documents by the city attorney.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you. Roll call, please.
Gilbert.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Seabolt.
Yes.
Morrell.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes. And I did get caught yesterday and photographed actually surveying that myself. And it wasn't a very photogenic photograph, I should say. Item 15, we're going back to a good one here. Items pertaining to 1% sales tax for medical health purposes. Item A of this, discuss partnership between City of Perry, Oklahoma, and Stillwater Medical Center Authority, and initiate an initiative to retain the hospital and medical health services for the community. We've all gone through this over the months. So we need to decide, let the community decide what its health care will look like in the future. And we have our representatives here from Perry Memorial, from Stillwater, and we'll let them comment.
Yeah, we handed out 3 things in front of you that I just wanted to comment on, just kind of some updates of things that we've been working on. One is a booklet that's on the front of it. It's blue and it says commitment to excellence. And, you know, anytime you have a significant change in an organization, one of the big things that has to change is culture. And, you know, this is something we did at Stillwater Medical Center. I'm gonna say it's almost been 10 years ago now. You know, in order to get where you want to be, everybody has to be on board. And we developed a set of behavior standards and set them as our commitment to how we want to treat our employees, how they treat each other, and how we treat our patients that we serve. And I will tell you that I feel like it's one of the most important pieces that got Stillwater Medical Center to where it is today. Because it just creates that culture and everybody feels a part of the team and patients are better taken care of. So, in doing that and coming to Perry Memorial Hospital, we wanted to ingrain that same type of culture here. Not that it was that bad, but we want to make sure everybody's on board. And so, when you create these standards, you select a group of frontline staff that are high performers. And we looked at and reviewed the standards that we had in place at Stillwater, and that team kind of really adopted the majority of them, tweaked them a little bit, but pretty much had all those intact. And then we introduced those frontline staff actually introduced those to the PMH employees in October. They all signed, you see it on the back of that book, it's something that every year they have to commit to follow these standards and that everybody will be held accountable to them. Everybody signed off on that. And this is, you know, what we want to live by moving forward. And so, you know, it's something that we can hold people accountable for, something that there's no surprise. You know, whenever something goes wrong and we bring this book out and say, you know, this is something that you committed to and you need to make this change. And if you don't want to make the change, then we need to have you be successful somewhere else. And so that is kind of our, I would say, our groundwork to get us to where we feel like we need to be. One of the other things in there, you know, we've talked about rebranding, and I just had gave you a one-page look of what the new logo will look like, and it's just basically going to say Stillwater Medical and have Perry below it. You know, this is something Stillwater Medical Center has been working on a rebranding themselves for about a year now. And while we're close to finalizing that, they're not completely final. It eventually will be Stillwater Medical, and then, it may be it'll be Stillwater Medical Perry, it'll be Stillwater Medical Physicians Clinic, but Stillwater Medical is kind of the main tagline. And then there'll be a watermark that we'll have above it. But the Stillwater Medical Perry is something that we're gonna get some temporary banners and signage that we're gonna put up. It won't be permanent until the final branding has taken place with Stillwater Medical and Stillwater. Then we'll put up more permanent signage here. But know over this next month, we'll be working to get this new brand up and get an article prepared just to kind of put in the paper and let people know what we're doing and why we're doing it. The other piece of paper, I just kind of wanted you guys to see a listing of hospitals in Oklahoma that have a sales tax. There's probably 35 hospitals in Oklahoma that have a city or county sales tax that goes to support their local healthcare organization. And so I just thought that might be some good information if you wanted to reach out to any of those community members or those council members in those areas.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? If you're ready, then we'll,
Thank you.
that is Stephen Taylor, by the way. And with him is Courtney Kuski. Any comments or questions?
I mean, just so we're clear, even if the sales tax approved, they still have the right to shut down
Yes.
thereafter?
Yes.
Okay, just put that out there. Okay.
Well, we'll discuss that in the next, in the next section.
Okay.
Okay. We'll move, just flip over to page 7. You'll see there, the resolution. And she handed out some newer copies of it.
Can I speak to that, Mayor?
Yes, because they knew I'd read it wrong if we didn't. Go ahead.
The first thing we're gonna talk about is the ordinance, and I can tell you that, I had a call from Jim Franklin, and, we also sent the proposition that we had up to the county election board. They're always real helpful, because they see real people up there on questions. And, she's often my meter on whether something's confusing or not, because, it's kind of her job, feeding that questions beside. She's a very helpful person. Her, Pam McBride, yeah. And so we sent that up to her, and then I spoke to Jim, and I want to explain to you about this, about the sales tax. The sales tax comes in, if it's passed, it comes into the city. And it's for, to support the maintenance, operation, and administration of the hospital located in Perry. But, in order to appropriate those dollars over to, Stillwater Medical Center, you have to have a contract. I mean, you just do, which sets out the consideration for that sets out the accountability and the safeguards. And then any restrictions that you might have on that. I mean, because we currently have a contract with Stillwater, it's the hospital sublease agreement. And we all know what the terms are, because we've gone over them about a gazillion times. And, just in short, they're required to run the ER during the term. There's about 4.5 years left. And inpatient services, but if they ever want to change inpatient services, they got to notice us for 6 months, and then they would be able to amend that or alter that in some way. And so based on that, and based on some of the losses they've had, they've asked for our assistance, and it's of course our intention, recognizing that they have that ability, and recognizing that kind of takes the hospital out of the hospital. I mean, it kind of takes it out. We're running this question, and the question is basically to be really, really simple. You want to pass the tax and keep the hospital, you know? Now, we did set out in our materials that there's no promises here. You know, I mean, all the money in the world, I guess, could keep a hospital going, but, you know, if it's not meant to stay open, it's not meant to stay open. So, you know, you could have huge liabilities. You can't promise things that way. But what we ought to be able to get out of this is we ought to be able to get that consideration that I'm talking about. And what might that be? Well, it may be an amendment to the notice period, you know, extending that time. It may be for so long as we pay them these dollars, they're not going to exercise that notice, you know, shutting down inpatient. But there's going to be a conversation about what that exactly means. Now, having that conversation now, I mean, you could argue, why don't you have that conversation now? Well, it's not as effective to have a conversation when you don't have the money. I mean, you can't back your conversation up with anything. But once you have the money, I mean, Stillwater's going to want the money, and we'll be able to be in a very effective place to, you know, to talk about what that means. And I'll tell you, it'll probably be some kind of flexible standard, you know, but that's what we'll address. Now, because of that, I mean, I always intended to do that. You can't just pass money along. You always have to have consideration, accountability, safeguards. I added an audit to it. So Jim called me up and kind of asked me about that. And I said, well, we intend to do that. And he said, well, it might be better to say that. And I said, you know, you might be right. Hence, page 2 of this ordinance that you were provided. Item 2, the last 2 sentences. Tax proceeds may be appropriated to a third-party operator for the hospital located in Perry pursuant to a contract with consideration, safeguards, accountability, and an annual audit. You know, the annual audit is just another safeguard that, you know, that the money's used properly. So long as the hospital remains open as defined in said contract, all appropriate tax proceeds shall be used exclusively by said third-party operator for the maintenance, operation, administration of the hospital located in Perry. So that's even an additional thing. You know, the money has to be used for this hospital. Now, of course, it would be, but you want to make sure that it's not used for some other purpose. So that's how we tightened up the ordinance. And of course, the proposition says, you know, a bunch of stuff, but or as further provided by the ordinance. Now, you can only have a certain number of words in your proposition. I actually called the bond attorneys today. The rule was always 150 words. Nate Ellis, who was here the other day, said that it's now 200 words. Well, I limited ours to 150 words. And, you know, simplicity is better. I thought about putting that and a contract and accountability and consideration, and I stuck it in there, and it just looked like too many words. But that can certainly be discussed as a part of the proposal. Another thing that we did, and I called him and asked him, because for 40 years I've always said sales tax, paren, excise tax, and paren, okay? And I said, why do, you know, I mean, I've done it for 40 years. Why is it always there? Because the election board secretary thought it was confusing. And then I actually put paren, quote, tax, end quote, and I don't think you can have anything in parens in these questions. I'd forgotten about that. But in talking to him, he said, well, yeah, that's the way we always did it, but a sales tax is a sales tax. I think you're okay saying a sales tax, okay? So we changed the both the proposition and the ordinance to reflect that we're asking for a 1 cent sales tax. Now it's real simple. By the way, we probably are going to have an amendment. He did suggest something which we haven't done, I don't think. And that is, you know, we have the use tax, which is the flip side of the sales tax. And every time we amend the sales tax, we have to go in and amend the use tax, which is the flip side of the sales tax. And I think we're gonna come in and amend that, and you can do that without a vote of the people, because, I mean, it doesn't take any more money. But we're probably gonna amend that to say, instead of 1%, so every time it gets amended either up and down, just in the amount that's provided by the sales tax. And he said everybody's done it. It's like, well, almost everybody has done it. We haven't done that here yet. But that is probably something that I'm gonna bring to you at the next meeting. And we'll probably just say that will be reflected up or down based on the amount of your sales tax. So no real substantial changes, just tightening it up, you know. If we get this passed, we're not gonna collect it till July 1st. And that's a rule of the tax commission. There has to be a period of time. You gotta alert the vendors, you know. The other thing we talked about was the 10% threshold. You know, the 10% ceiling, the sales tax ceiling. Just in a lot of people's minds, you know, that 10%, because this is gonna bump over 10%. So we pretty much argued all morning about it, you know, and said, is that a ceiling, you know? Will that mean something? And where we ended up was, this question is, do you want to keep your hospital or not? Do you want to keep medical services or not? You know, when you have a stroke, do you have a chance of surviving or not? You know? And so we didn't. I mean, we're proposing the full 1%. But do understand, when you put these questions together, that there's legality to them, there's also politics to them. You know, how can we draft it so that the public will A, understand it, and B, that it might pass? One of those things is we limited its term. You know, we had originally talked about a 10-year term. And some of them, heck, the one we're doing in Blackwell is gonna be a 25-year term. I mean, of course, that's gonna be used for a public improvement. So, you know, I mean, if these pass, there's gonna be 37 on that list instead of 30. In fact, is Blackwell listed on that? 'Cause
Yeah.
They are.
They're on there, okay. Well, there'll be extended, their time will be extended. And that, of course, was something new for them, just done 2 years ago to support their hospital. But this one, we figured, don't make the term real long, make it fairly consistent with what the term of the of the lease will be. And so, I mean, the lease term was 5 years. We're making this 5 years. That's about all I can tell you about it. What we're doing is giving it out there to the public, but it's, you know, if it doesn't pass, things may not change for a short term. They may change sooner than later. We will keep an ER for 4.5 years, you know, under the agreement, but thereafter, you know, the hospital as we know it may be no more. And with this partnership, it may give us time, the necessary time, to turn things around. I mean, you know, the federal government is starting to recognize the plight in rural America. I mean, they just approved funding, including refunding rural hospital debt in the latest farm bill. So through USDA, there's more dollars that have been appropriated for rural hospitals, and they're recognizing the plight. Those right now, and they could be designed for operations or retiring existing debt and the building of buildings. So there's issues there. There's also the issue of if we would embrace, you know, some of the things that we talked about in the previous page. You know, we have a new governor If we decided to participate, the state, in the Medicare expansion program, if that happened, there could be a big change. And we ourselves have sent a leader down there. I don't know how he stands on it, but I bet he stands with rural hospitals, you know? And he's a Republican.
Has there been any scuttlebutt on that, or is this a
It's
pipe
still,
dream?
it's still kind of early, you know, and the real question is what would the new governor sign? You know? And it looks like the administration is going to be conservative, but I don't want to, you know, I don't want to say that. Heck, they hired, as the Department of Commerce, they hired Brent Kissling, good choice, you know? And a Northwest Oklahoma guy to sit on the cabinet. So, you know, I haven't followed it all in the Oklahoman, but you know, with a few changes, we could be back. You know, we could be. You know, it could be better business. But that's what we have for you.
Do we not want to make any kind of mention about using that money for paramedic use?
Sure. I mean, we should. If the hospital closes, then this is really a medical health tax, and it's to keep the medical health of the folks in Perry up. You know, chiefly if there's a hospital by helping to support the hospital. If the hospital closes, then other medical facilities, and then also paramedic care. Because if we don't have a hospital here, it's going to be important to get our EMS firefighters, and maybe even an expansion of them, but certainly to get them up to the paramedic stage so that when they come out, they can administer, you know, life-saving drugs and can, you know, keep you going. The difference between a paramedic and an EMT on what they can do is dramatic. I didn't really know it until I actually had a case, and this was recently. Really, I mean, EMTs can administer very little, where a paramedic can do what a nurse can do what a doctor can do, and that can be the difference between life and death when you've got a 30-minute ride, and that's what it comes down to.
Bryce, I've got a sticky question for you on
Yeah.
Section 2, last two lines, second to the last line.
Yeah.
All appropriated tax proceeds. When do they become appropriated? When we adopt our budget each year? Or when do they actually become appropriated?
Well, it would become a part, you know, if it got passed, we would probably do a budget amendment and appropriate those, you know, this is gonna be July 1st. So we would appropriate that year from July 1st to June 30th, we
It
would
would be part
appropriate.
of our regular budget.
It would be a part of the 1920 budget.
Okay, and the second year would have to be reappropriated.
Oh, yeah.
The third year reappropriated.
Yeah, because this is sales tax dollars, they have to be appropriated each year.
Yes, but we've got other places where we designate dollars that can only go certain places forever.
Mhm. And that's why,
That's what I'm wanting to clear up.
and that's why under Section 3, all these dollars go into this medical health sales tax fund and can only be used for the purposes as described in 2. Those, and that's a very good point, Earl. These funds are separated and they can only exclusively be used, they can be appropriated for purposes as set out under 2. But 3 is they go into the separate account and can only be used for those purposes. We also provided that if we're appropriating to a third-party operator, that it's also going to be subject to an audit, which will be, you know, some type of audit, which will ensure that the last sentence, and that's how they're spent, is followed.
I like the audit part being put in there. I
Yeah.
really do.
Well, I think it's something that we can advertise as a part of this question.
And Earl brought up a good point. That's what the people are wanting to know is, number 1, is this earmarked? Number 2, how's it appropriated? Number 3, how tight are the rules of it. It can't be used for anything else but saving our hospital.
Right.
And I think that gives everybody
Well,
a peace
unless,
of mind.
unless the hospital closes.
Unless,
Right.
and then the tax becomes, it comes off the rolls, is that
Well,
correct?
no,
Or
if the
paramedics,
hospital
I'm
closes, it goes to
sorry.
paramedics, I mean, we'd have to gear that up, and then, quite frankly, we'd have to go back to the public, we'd have to see what that cost is, and if that cost is something less, then we would go out with something less for another term and ask them, to see if they approve that, but this is, it's just a short-term, question, so,
How many paramedics, EMTs do we have right now?
we have none.
No paramedics?
No, we have no paramedics. We do have, is this the place we have?
Have we ever considered paramedics, adding them here recently?
Well, yeah, we've been talking about it. In fact, that's something that the fire chief is talking about right now.
Really?
Yeah, they're having a conversation about it right now. They're actually talking about, the ability to bring, 3 more. It was actually going to be something that we could talk about here. It's just that we don't have the budget for it. But talking about that right now and either getting some folks up to that speed or perhaps adding that as an additional service with additional people. Because it really gets back to the callback and how many times folks are called back and whether or not we should do it in another way. You're paying overtime and if you had people doing that, but it's a very expensive proposition. I'll tell you, in Blackwell, they have 2 going to school right now for paramedic
How
training.
long does it take to get from
I
an
think-
EMT to paramedic?
I think they said 4 months, but I wouldn't
Okay.
I wouldn't,
A little while.
I wouldn't quote me, yeah, and that may be completely wrong, but or it may be they've been going for 4 months, okay? But it's a whole bit of, training, and where did they say they're doing it? In Ada, they're offering it in Ada right now, and that's where they're driving to, at least that's the name that I remember. And they have had, paramedics, on their deal. And of course, if you have a paramedic, you can bill at a higher rate because you're offering a higher level of service. Now, whether it would work here without that additional funding, okay, is questionable because of, our budget. I mean, we would really need, at this point, they can get you to the hospital pretty fast.
No, but I would
You know.
think they would support this and trying to get more to that level as Stillwater Medical Center.
Well, if this was no longer a hospital, yes, they would, and they have said that this was no longer a hospital, yes, they would support that.
So only if we're not a hospital to support it?
Well, we haven't started those discussions because we already have a contract.
Sure.
The contract is working okay for us, and, we need to find out whether there's going to be an additional public investment. Because you get things, in trading things. This is 2 public hospital trusts trying to work together to improve the health of the, heck, it's the whole county. It's certainly everybody on this side, and it's all of I-35 from what, 412 or higher. It's got real implications in it for business, for new business coming in, for the elderly, for the seniors. I'll turn 63 in a few days, and getting there. I recognize it, living in a community that wouldn't have a hospital. Maybe not.
And it does, I just turned 60, and I'm telling you right now, it's real.
It's
You get to
real.
really thinking about that stuff hard.
And that's what that's what the public need to, that's what the public need, that's what the public needs to think about.
I read a survey, that you've got 30 minutes on a stroke or a heart attack, and I don't know how accurate that is, but it seemed pretty accurate on saving your life.
think
from a
that's
heart
true.
attack or a stroke. I'll tell you what, you can't drive, I don't, now, if I have one of my loved ones, I can get to Stillwater in 30 minutes. It's not gonna be legal, but and that's not safe. But
Yep.
nobody wants to play that game.
Yeah, that's just an average.
Yeah,
You know,
nobody
I
wants
mean-
to play that game
I
and
mean,
take
some
that
are,
gamble.
some are higher, some are lower, so.
So it's very real.
Okay, we want to vote on this thing. Do we have a motion for item A, which is ordinance number 2019-1? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion, Mayor.
I'll second.
Question? Concern? Roll call, Dixie.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Ahern,
Yes.
Seabolt. Yes. Morrow,
Yes.
Stroller,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Motion on emergency?
Second.
Roll call, Dixie.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Seabolt. Yes. Morrow.
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Hang on a second, Mayor. Does that need to be read into record?
You mean the title? The title to it?
Well, we didn't read anything in the record. What are we voting on?
Well, yeah, well, I'll read in the record now. Consider, what we're voting on is consider approval of ordinance number 2019-1 of the City Council of the City of Perry, Oklahoma, amending Chapter 7 of the Perry Municipal Code 2018 supplement by the addition of a new subsection C to section 7-207 entitled 1% sales or excise tax. Actually, we've crossed that out. For medical health purposes, which ordinance authorized the assessment, levy, and collection of the 1% sales tax within the corporate limits of the City of Perry, Oklahoma, beginning on or after July 1st, 2019, and continuing until and ending on June 30th, 2024, and with the 1% sales tax being on the gross receipts or proceeds derived from certain sales governed by the Oklahoma Sales Tax Code, providing for the purpose of the tax, providing for the transfer of the tax to the limited purpose sales tax fund within the general budget of the City of Perry, Oklahoma, providing that the implementation of the ordinance is subject to voter approval, fixing the effective date, providing for cumulative effect, repeal or savings clause, codification, severability, and declaring an emergency. And I'll go ahead and read the B, which is the next item, which I already spoke to. Consider approval of resolution number 2019-1 of the City Council of the City of Perry, Oklahoma, authorizing the calling and holding of a nonpartisan special municipal election in the City of Perry, County of Noble, State of Oklahoma on Tuesday, the second day of April 2019, for the purpose of submitting to the qualified electors of the City of Perry, Oklahoma, the question of their approval or rejection of ordinance number 2019-1 relating to the provision of an additional 1% city sales tax, providing for this special election notice and proclamation. Now, one thing that I talked to Dixie about, we're going to publish this 3 times before the election, and we're going to publish, we got the cost of it, it's not that much. We're going to publish both the ordinance info and the question 3 times in the paper, 3 consecutive weeks before the election on Thursdays, so that everybody has the opportunity to see it. If they miss one issue, they'll see it. And I want them to get very comfortable with what this question is and what the proposition looks like, because this is certainly one of the more important things that we've ever put before the public.
So when would the talk about amending the contract happen? Like after the vote in April, if it passes, or before that?
No, my thought is that it would occur, if it was approved, I mean, if money is passed for a purpose, we already have we already have the hospital sublease agreement.
I know, I'm just concerned that if it passes and then they go ahead and give us notice, because they're gonna get our money regardless.
No,
So we're gonna
no,
ship
they're,
people to Stillwater.
oh no, they're only gonna get our money. Passing the ordinance does not transfer the money to Stillwater. In fact, Stillwater's name isn't even mentioned in the proposition or the ordinance, because of course anything can happen. It's to the third-party operator of the hospital, which is currently Stillwater, and it's subject to the hospital sub-transfer lease agreement that we have with them, okay? But in order to appropriate the money, that's why we put that provision. There's gotta be a contract with consideration, accountability, safeguards, and an audit. And when you talk about the contract, there'll probably be a contract, and we'll be talking about an amendment to that hospital transfer agreement, because, you know, we've gotta get something for this. And, but until you have that funding, you have very little power,
Okay.
you know?
It's our approved appropriation at the budget time that controls this.
And it would be appropriated for that purpose, and then the agreement would be passed. So, you know, I would say that it's absolutely going to be done between April 2nd and July 1st. And, you know, I'll just tell you, what we got the first time with Stillwater was really good. I mean,
Where?
I mean, that's subject to, of course, opinion, but, I mean, we kept the ER open for 5 years without our investment except in the hospital facilities and paying off the AR of the current hospital trust. I mean, you know, like it or not, Stillwater is the hero here, and at least in my opinion, and I'm very hopeful that they'll continue to be. I did speak to Alan today. We discussed this. He completely agrees. We didn't agree on all the terms. We talked about the framework of it, and he said absolutely, that's what we're gonna do.
I mean, I stand behind it 100%. My concern is that this money's earmarked, and then they're gonna shut doors because they know they're gonna get our business because we're gonna drive over there. That's my concern about all of it right now. Other than that, I'm for it completely,
If they
but,
shut the doors, they won't get our money.
yeah, we will, we'll ship them over there to Stillwater.
No, our sales tax monies.
We'll have it for 5 years.
Well, if they had that plan, they would have been smart not to have entered into an agreement with us. You know, I mean,
I mean, the ER
that
isn't
would have been the
minded.
bright thing, let our hospital close, and they would have gotten all the business. I mean, that's the and I know I don't work for them, but at least in the framework of doing this for 40 years, you know, that's what a business would do. It would
Yeah,
let
I mean,
you, it
we
would
have
let
no-
you
I mean,
die.
We want it to be successful. I mean, you know,
course.
we lost $1.2 million during the first 6 months. I mean, that's not a drop in the bucket. I mean, we're not in this just to shut the hospital down and get the business in Stillwater. Otherwise, just like you said, we would not have even engaged this or trying to make it work.
And to support that a little bit, the board contacted 5 different management groups. Stillwater stepped up. The others were not interested because of our small population. Would you like me to name them?
Go ahead.
Alliance, Mercy's group, Anthony's group, the Stillwater group, and one more.
Bass.
Bass. And no one was interested. Anthony's was interested, OU was interested, but they were going through changes themselves. New contracts, new owners.
We appreciate them being interested, and we appreciate Stillwater taking it on. So, I mean, there were a number that did respond. I don't want to make it sound like no one responded.
Yeah. I said 5 responded. Anyway,
All right, in section B, I'm highly disappointed, Earl. It says County of K.
Well, I saw that, but it's not in this.
the handout does not have.
The
it.
handout doesn't have it, because I went and looked, because
Yeah.
I was getting ready to hit old Blackwell over there with that one.
That's what you need to be arguing, okay?
I think Pam would have caught that one.
Actually, I threw that, I mean, I put this agenda together on holiday, and
On the beach.
And Judge
Yeah.
Sherry DeBoard is the one that caught it and called And I thanked her today for that, because, it certainly is important to get your county right. But it was only in one spot, so.
Let's have a motion to, item B of the ordinance for,
Motion to approve.
oh, excuse me, the resolution 2019-.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion further? Roll call.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Seagull,
Yes.
Morrow,
Yes.
Stroller,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes. Do we need a motion?
No.
16, new business. Any new business? Any funny business? Item 17, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, Dixie.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Seagull,
Yes.
Morrow,
Yes.
Stroller,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.